There was a guy I hooked up with when I was like 20.
Go watch that in its entirety. It's a pretty good story, and it does kind of lay out a few things that many people might find confusing. So, I wanted to add on to this because this is a topic that doesn't get talked about much, and I don't always get opportunities to bring it up here because I don't like to cold open on these topics. I prefer somebody else to kind of start the conversation. But hopefully the creator sees this and I can give them something to work with, and they can tell me I'm wrong, right, whatever. Don't care. I just like to get this opinion out there. But I've noticed within my lifespan, which is not incredibly long, not incredibly short, that the majority of married couples I have encountered at one point I've been privy to the knowledge that it's just not been that great. Not horrible, your usual vanilla kind of whatever. But there's a lot of misconceptions with fidelity in the relationship. And I think that's for two reasons. And I've talked about this before in videos I did early on, but only portions of it. But I think it's the original video creator there talks about how people don't talk about their preferences or what turns them on or turns them off and that kind of stuff. And I think that's partially an American issue. And I say that because it's the way people are brought up, and the way they're told to and not to do things, right? And I think that, I mean, I can cover this in like the time I have, but men and women are taught things very differently. Men at a very young age are taught to go out and seek out as many partners as possible, and the more you have, the better off you're going to be. Women are taught that the less partners they have, the better off they're going to be. And then these people become adults, they get married, and one has been out doing all sorts of stuff. And so they're kind of done, right? They've already been there, done that, and the other is still very curious but hasn't had a chance to explore themselves. I think that's one reason why those relationships end. They don't know enough about themselves to even enjoy themselves. That can make a huge difference. And so those opportunities are gone for women, or they have to wait till later in life, and they're kind of like shoehorned into a marriage, not knowing even what they like, while men just get bored, right? Because they've already done all this and they're just ready to settle down. It's really unfair. I think that's also why it is you see a lot of different things come up in media that become popularized, like Game of Thrones and 50 Shades of Grey, for example. I think the only reason those were so powerful is because they were so explicit, and that the average person was just turned on by it but didn't want to discuss it with anybody. I find that hilarious. I've had a lot of conversations about interests with people, fetishes and whatnot, and they always talk about it like it's surprising, and I've heard a lot of different things. I don't know everything, but I've heard a lot of things, and like that original author there had said, that none of it's been like so surprising that it's been like, oh my god, no. It's I've heard some out there stuff, and I've been like, that's interesting. My mind tends to gravitate towards, I wonder how you develop that, but no, and there is no communication. Additionally, couples are taught that marriage is something that is just very basic, right? That's kind of like an end of life thing. Marriage to me doesn't sound very fun at all, the way that it's there. I think also what comes in as a key point is that religion shapes how people talk to each other about what they do in the bedroom. Religion makes things very, very vanilla, and it really is awful. On the same hand, that can exasperate things too, where somebody becomes just literally a freak, because they're suppressed for that. But no, the conversation needs to be had. Everybody has preferences. I think that people would have a lot more fun if they could explore that. But another kind of side to this is that if you look at the amount of people that get married straight out of high school, there's a lot of those couples, or people that get married in their 20s before they've even had a chance to explore themselves. That creates an issue. How can you be fun with your partner if you don't even know yourself? And a lot of people are just afraid at that point. Maybe there's guilt, like, I feel I should already know this. I feel I should already know how to do these things. I wish we had a revolution sexually in this country. I feel like the one thing we got cheated of from the 70s was free love. And I know that's not like the perfect picture that it gets painted out to be, but we really need that again. We need some kind of mass event where people are able to be free and explore themselves and enjoy things. It does wonders for a population, my god. But yeah, something needs to be done. But I would love to expand on this topic, but I would have to work on specific points, because I could easily do a whole TED talk on this. No, I'm not an expert. I just have opinions and theories. You're free to disagree with them. Does anybody else have any thoughts? Try to keep it civil in the comments, but do you have any thoughts or comments on this? How do you feel about this? And have you tried talking to a partner and been rejected? I have once in a relationship been rejected because of interests or wanting to try stuff. I'm not going to get into too much details on that. It was pretty plain. It's not a great story. It's just not entertaining, but it was kind of like I was younger, and it was just like, okay. That relationship didn't last very long, obviously. But yeah. So, what are your thoughts on this, guys?